You see this? Federal credentials. Means you're in my lane now. Tell me why you were driving so slow in the left lane.
Officer, I was moving over to let a truck merge, that's all.
That excuse doesn't cut it.
I'm just telling you the truth.
Turn around. Hands behind your back.
You don't want to do this?
This officer made the worst mistake of his career when he decided to humiliate the wrong driver on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. Before we continue, let me take this opportunity to thank you so much for supporting our channel. Just choosing to watch our video means a lot to us. Before we go any further, tell us, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this is your first time here. Raymond Thornton was 70 years old and had spent the last 4 decades in federal law enforcement. He started as a deputy marshal in Atlanta back in 1985, worked his way through fugitive apprehension, witness protection, and eventually landed at headquarters in Arlington, Virginia. For the past 6 years, he'd served as director of the United States Marshals Service, overseeing nearly 5,000 deputy marshals across the country. He reported directly to the Attorney General. His job involved congressional testimonies, budget meetings, and coordinating with every major law enforcement agency in America. But on this particular Tuesday in October, Raymond wasn't thinking about any of that. He was driving back from visiting his sister in North Carolina, taking the scenic route through rural Virginia in his personal vehicle, a modest Lincoln Town car he'd owned for 12 years. The car was clean, well-maintained, and registered properly. Raymond had his license, registration, and insurance card in the glove compartment, like always. He was doing 53 in a 55 zone when he saw the flashing lights behind him. Raymond checked his mirrors, signaled, and pulled onto the shoulder of Route 29, just outside the small town of Kempton. The highway was mostly empty at 2 in the afternoon. He rolled down his window, placed both hands on the steering wheel where they could be seen, and waited. Officer Bryant Collier approached the driver's side window with his hand resting on his service weapon. He was 34 years old and had been with the Kempton Police Department for 9 years. His personnel file would later show 17 citizen complaints, most involving allegations of excessive force or unprofessional conduct during traffic stops. None had resulted in serious discipline. License and registration, Collier said without introduction. Good afternoon, officer. Can you tell me why you stopped me? I'll ask the questions. License and registration. Now. Raymond slowly reached for the glove compartment. I'm reaching for my documents. They're right here in the glove box. Collier stepped back and put his hand fully on his weapon. Keep your hands where I can see them. Sir, you just asked for my registration. It's in the glove compartment. I'm going to open it slowly. Don't get smart with me. Do you have something to hide? Raymond took a breath. He'd been through situations like this before, though not recently. Not since he'd risen to a position where most law enforcement officers recognized his name. He retrieved his license and registration, along with his official federal credentials, identifying him as director of the U.S. Marshals Service. He handed everything through the window. Collier glanced at the driver's license, then the registration. His eyes passed right over the federal ID without really looking at it. Or maybe he looked and didn't care. Step out of the vehicle, Collier said. Officer, I'd like to know what violation I committed. I was under the speed limit. My vehicle is properly registered. All my documents are valid. Step out of the vehicle. I'm not going to ask again. Raymond complied. He opened the door carefully and stepped onto the gravel shoulder. He was wearing khaki slacks, a button-down shirt, and loafers. He stood 5'9" and moved with the slight stiffness of someone with a bad knee from an old injury. Collier looked him up and down. Turn around, hands on the vehicle. Sir, I'm a federal law enforcement officer. My credentials are right there with my license. I'm the director of... I don't care if you're the director of the post office. Hands on the vehicle." Raymond placed his hands on the roof of the Lincoln. Collier kicked his feet apart wider than necessary and patted him down roughly, checking his pockets and waistband. "You're carrying any weapons? Any drugs?" "No, sir." "Where are you coming from?" "Visiting family in Greensboro."
Where are you headed? Home to Arlington. Collier walked back to his patrol car with Raymond's documents. He sat in his vehicle for nearly 15 minutes while Raymond stood on the side of the highway with his hands on his car. Traffic passed occasionally. A few drivers slowed down to look. When Collier finally returned, he handed back the license and registration, but kept the federal credentials. "What's this supposed to be?" He held up the ID card. "Those are my official credentials from the Department of Justice. I'm the director of the United States Marshals Service." Collier laughed, actually laughed. "Sure you are. And I'm the Secretary of Defense." "Officer, you can verify my identity with a single phone call. The number for the Marshals Service headquarters is on that card." "You think I'm stupid? You think I don't know a fake ID when I see one?" Raymond kept his voice level. "It's not fake. Call the number." "I'm going to ask you one more time. Where did you get this fake federal ID?" "It's not fake." Collier stepped closer. "Sir, I'm placing you under arrest for possession of fraudulent government documents and impersonating a federal officer." Raymond felt his chest tighten, but his voice stayed calm. Years of training kept him steady. "Officer Collier, I'm asking you to please verify my credentials before you do something both of us will regret. Turn around. Hands behind your back. I'm not resisting, but I need you to understand you're about to make a very serious mistake." Collier grabbed Raymond's wrist and twisted it behind his back harder than necessary. The metal cuffs clicked tight. Raymond winced, but didn't pull away. "You have the right to remain silent," Collier began. A second patrol car pulled up. Officer Linda Vasquez stepped out and approached. She'd been Collier's partner before and knew his reputation. "Bryant, what's going on?" "Got a guy here with fake federal credentials. Claims he's some big shot with the Marshals." Vasquez looked at Raymond, then at the ID card Collier was holding. Her expression changed. "Bryant, that looks official." "It's fake." "Did you call it in?" "I don't need to call it in. I know a fake when I see one." Vasquez picked up the credentials and examined them more closely. The seal, the hologram, the photo. Everything looked legitimate. "Bryant, I really think you should verify this." "Are you questioning me, Vasquez?" She hesitated. Collier was senior to her by 4 years. "I'm just saying maybe we should be sure before we—" "I'm sure. Now are you going to help me or stand there second-guessing?" Vasquez looked at Raymond, who met her eyes steadily. She could see he wasn't angry, just tired, like he'd seen this before and knew exactly how it would end. "Sir, what's your name?" "Raymond Thornton." She pulled out her phone and searched the name. The first result was a Justice Department press release from 3 months earlier, showing Raymond at a congressional hearing. Same face, same name. Title, Director, United States Marshals Service. "Bryant," she said quietly, "we need to let him go, right now." Do you think Officer Collier realized his mistake at that moment? Or was he too deep in to back down? Collier looked at Vasquez's phone screen for exactly 3 seconds before his face went pale. He didn't apologize. He didn't unlock the handcuffs immediately. He just stood there while the reality of what he'd done settled over him like concrete. "Take the cuffs off," Vasquez said. Collier fumbled with his keys and removed the restraints. Raymond rubbed his wrists where the metal had bitten into his skin. Red marks were already forming.
"Mr. Thornton, I apologize for this misunderstanding," Vasquez said. "We'll get you on your way immediately." Raymond picked up his credentials from where Collier had dropped them on the hood of the patrol car. He looked at Collier directly. "Officer, what's your full name and badge number?" Collier's jaw tightened. "Bryant Collier, badge 473. "And your supervisor's name?" "Sergeant Dennis Howell." Raymond took out his phone and made a note. "I'll be filing a formal complaint with your department. You detained me without cause, ignored my credentials, refused to verify my identity, and used excessive force during the arrest. Your body camera recorded all of it." Collier found his voice again. "Sir, I was just doing my job. You can't blame an officer for being thorough." "Thorough would have been making a phone call. What you did was ignore evidence and escalate unnecessarily. How many other people have you treated this way who didn't have federal credentials to prove you wrong?" Collier didn't answer. Raymond got back in his Lincoln and drove away. His hands were shaking slightly on the steering wheel, but his mind was already working through the next steps. He'd been in law enforcement long enough to know exactly how departments handled complaints like this. They'd minimize it, call it a misunderstanding, maybe give Collier a written warning and send him to a training seminar. Then they'd move on. But Raymond wasn't going to let this go. When he got home to Arlington that evening, he drafted a detailed complaint and sent it to the Kempton Police Department, copying the Virginia State Police and the Department of Justice Office of Civil Rights. He included the exact time of the stop, the officers involved, and a request for the body camera footage. The response came 3 days later from Sergeant Howell. The letter was polite, but dismissive. It acknowledged that Officer Collier had stopped Raymond's vehicle for a minor traffic concern, and that there had been a brief miscommunication regarding credential verification. The department apologized for any inconvenience and assured Raymond that the matter had been addressed internally with additional training. No mention of the handcuffs, no mention of Collier's refusal to verify the credentials, no mention of the laughing or the aggressive pat-down. Raymond called Sergeant Howell directly. "Sergeant, I read your response. It doesn't reflect what actually happened." Howell's voice was tired. "Mr. Thornton, I've reviewed the incident. Officer Collier made an error in judgment, but there was no malicious intent. He's been counseled. I want to see the body camera footage. That's part of an internal review. I can't release it to you at this time. Sergeant, I'm the director of the U.S. Marshals Service. I'm not some civilian you can stonewall with procedural excuses. I want that footage, and I want to see Collier's personnel file. With all due respect, sir, your position doesn't give you authority over local police matters. If you want to pursue this further, you're welcome to file a lawsuit." Raymond hung up and sat at his kitchen table for a long time. He thought about letting it go. He had a demanding job. He didn't need the headache of fighting a small-town police department over what some people would call a minor incident. But then, he thought about all the people who'd been in his position without the credentials or the connections to fight back. The people who got handcuffed on the side of the road and had no recourse. The people who filed complaints that disappeared into desk drawers. He made another call, this time to Patricia Chen, an attorney who specialized in civil rights cases against law enforcement. They'd worked together years ago on a federal task force. "Ray, I need your help with something." He explained the situation. She listened without interrupting. "Ray, you know what you're walking into here, right? They're going to drag this out. They're going to make you look like you're abusing your position for a personal vendetta. The police union will close ranks. It's going to be ugly." "I know. And you're still sure you want to do this?" "I'm sure." Patricia filed a federal civil rights lawsuit 2 weeks later, naming Officer Collier, Sergeant Howell, and the Kempton Police Department. The complaint alleged unlawful detention, excessive force, racial profiling, and violation of Raymond's Fourth Amendment rights. It also requested the body camera footage through formal discovery.
The department fought the release for 6 weeks, claiming it was part of an ongoing internal investigation.
A federal judge disagreed and ordered the footage turned over within 72 hours. When Patricia finally watched the video, she called Raymond immediately. "Ray, this is worse than you described. Collier's tone, his body language, everything. He treated you like a criminal from the first second. And when you showed him your credentials, he barely looked at them. This wasn't an honest mistake. This was contempt." "Can we use it?" "Absolutely. But there's something else. I pulled Collier's personnel file through Discovery. He's got 17 complaints going back 7 years. Excessive force, racial profiling, unprofessional conduct. The department didn't discipline him for any of them. They just kept clearing him and putting him back on the street." Raymond closed his eyes. 17 complaints? How many people had Collier done this to? How many of them had filed complaints that went nowhere? "There's a pattern here," Patricia continued, "and the department knew about it. That's going to be important when we talk about institutional liability." The local news picked up the story a week later. The headline read, "Federal Marshal Director Files Civil Rights Lawsuit Against Local Police." The article included Raymond's photo in his official capacity and a still image from the body camera footage showing him in handcuffs on the side of the highway. The Kempton Police Department issued a statement defending Collier's actions as appropriate under the circumstances and calling the lawsuit an overreach by a federal official upset about a routine traffic stop. But the community saw the body camera footage when it was released publicly as part of the court filing. They watched Collier laugh when Raymond showed his credentials. They watched him refuse to make a simple phone call. They watched him twist an elderly man's arms behind his back and cuff him on the side of the road for no legitimate reason. And they started asking questions. How many other people had Collier treated this way? Why did the department ignore 17 complaints? What was Chief Marcus Brennan doing about the pattern of abuse? 3 community members came forward with their own stories. A black college student who'd been pulled over and searched for matching a description. A Latino contractor who'd been detained for 30 minutes because Collier didn't believe his work truck was registered to him. An Asian American doctor who'd been accused of stealing her own vehicle. All 3 had filed complaints. All 3 complaints had been dismissed. Patricia amended the lawsuit to include a claim of systemic civil rights violations and a pattern of discriminatory policing. The case was no longer just about Raymond. It was about an entire department that had allowed Officer Bryant Collier to operate without accountability for years. What do you think happens when a department protects bad officers instead of removing them? How many lives get damaged before someone finally says enough? Chief Marcus Brennan held a press conference 4 days after the amended lawsuit was filed. He stood behind a podium at City Hall with the mayor beside him and read from a prepared statement. The Kempton Police Department takes all allegations of misconduct seriously. We have conducted a thorough internal review of Officer Collier's actions and found that while his approach could have been more cordial, he followed proper procedures for a traffic stop. We stand by our officers who put their lives on the line every day to keep this community safe. A reporter raised her hand. Chief Brennan, the body camera footage shows Officer Collier laughing at Director Thornton's federal credentials. How is that following proper procedure? Officer Collier had legitimate concerns about the authenticity of the documents. He exercised reasonable caution. But he never called to verify them. Isn't that standard protocol? Every situation is different. Officers use their training and judgment to assess threats in real time. Another reporter spoke up. What about the 17 prior complaints against Officer Collier? Why wasn't he disciplined? Those complaints were investigated and found to be without merit. We don't discipline officers based on false accusations. Are you saying all 17 people lied? End of the press conference without answering. But the questions didn't stop. Local activists organized a town hall meeting at the community center. More than 200 people showed up. They wanted answers about Collier, about the department's complaint process, about why officers with multiple violations stayed on the force. Raymond didn't attend, but Patricia did. She sat in the back and listened as person after person stood up to share their experiences with Kempton Police. Some stories were minor, rude line
comments, unnecessary traffic stops. Others were serious. Excessive force, illegal searches, threats. One woman described how Collier had pulled her teenage son over last year, made him sit on the curb for 40 minutes while he searched the car, and found nothing. No apology, no explanation. Just a warning for driving suspiciously. An elderly man talked about being stopped 3 times in 6 months, always by the same officer, always asked where he was going, always treated like he didn't belong in his own neighborhood. A young mother broke down crying as she described Collier pulling her over while her baby was in the car seat. He'd made her get out, searched her purse, accused her of lying about where she worked. Her baby screamed the entire time. Patricia recorded everything. These weren't just stories, they were evidence of a pattern. 2 weeks later, Raymond received a call from Deputy Assistant Attorney General Monica Reyes at the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. She'd been monitoring the case. Ray, I've reviewed the complaint and the body camera footage. I've also seen the news coverage and the community response. I think we need to open a federal investigation into the Kempton Police Department. Raymond had expected this, but hearing it confirmed still felt significant. What's the scope? Pattern or practice investigation under Section 14141. We'll examine use of force policies, traffic stop data, complaint procedures, supervision practices, everything. If we find systemic violations, we can force them into a consent decree. How long will it take? 6 months minimum for the investigation. Probably longer if they fight us. But Ray, you know how this works. Once we open the door, we're going to find things. And not just about Collier. The Justice Department announced the investigation on a Monday morning. The press release was formal and direct. It stated that DOJ was investigating whether the Kempton Police Department engaged in a pattern or practice of civil rights violations, including discriminatory policing, excessive force, and failure to properly investigate complaints. The announcement sent shockwaves through the small town. The police union held its own press conference, accusing Raymond of using his federal position to wage a personal vendetta. They called the investigation politically motivated and a waste of taxpayer money. Director Thornton is upset because an officer didn't recognize him. Instead of accepting a simple misunderstanding, he's weaponizing the federal government against a small police department that doesn't have the resources to fight back. This is an abuse of power, plain and simple. But this was only the calm before the real chaos. What happens next will shock you. Hit that subscribe button and comment, "I'm ready" for part 2 if you want to see what unfolds.